Hello Lafayette team. I just want to take a moment just to show you how to get ready for our data meetings next week at Lafayette Elementary. So the first data meeting really focused on our Tier 1 action plans. And so for our meeting next week, we want to look at the students that would be the lowest 15 to 20% of your class. So when you click into the Lafayette MTSS tracking document, you'll see there's several tabs. The SST tab is here, and so that will show each month which students we are monitoring through the SST process, and they just roll over each month as we continue to monitor them. They have put in the schedule here. Nicole has a schedule for SST. The Tier 1 academic plans that you worked on at your first data meeting and prior to that and reviewed, those would be hyperlinked here, and we'll continue that process for winter and spring. The one you'll need, there's two that you'll actually need in process for your data meetings. The first one is Tier 2 academic ELA data meetings. The students on this list are organized by teacher and grade. And so the way that they were added to this list initially was just if they showed up in the lowest 20th percentile for spring and fall, if they are in 1st through 5th grade, or if they were a new student in Lafayette and showed up in the lowest 20th percentile, or were a kindergarten student and showed up in the lowest 20th percentile. Now we know that is just one point of data. So I'm asking teachers if they can take a look at these students that have been flagged and then determine, one, if that student really is presenting low and should be receiving Tier 2 services, or if there are students that you feel need to be added. Perhaps they showed up in the 22nd percentile for NWA, but are really struggling in other pieces of data. So here you would go into the document, you would find your name, they're all organized here. And then if prior to the meeting you can do two things, if you can, if you plan to keep the student. So for example, if we're gonna keep Jada, we would click on the plan hyperlinked, and we would go in and just enter the baseline data for her. So you would put in the student and then your areas of concern. Obviously, we know they're in the lowest 20th percentile at this point. And then add in. For this student in kindergarten, it could be letter ID, it could be sound recognition, any other points of data here. So that way when the team meets, you would bring that data, it would be summarized in this document, and the team can really focus on the plan of action for the next 4 to 6 weeks. The student would then receive those services at the Tier 2 level within the classroom from the teacher. And then we would come back, let's just say, for example, the next meeting was December 18th, I'd have to check the date. And then teachers would again update the data in this column to see if the student is making progress. At that point, if the student isn't making progress and we see a need for additional Tier 3 supports, we would start an official progress monitoring form and create a SST referral for that student. If we see the students making progress, we'll continue to monitor them through the winter NWA and see how they are progressing. And this would just be, this sheet is a summary of the students' progress and the Tier 2 interventions that we are providing. So if you plan to keep them, you would input the plan. If you think, for example, the student doesn't need to be on SST or on Tier 2, you can put in this notes column exit, and I will update prior to the meeting. Maybe the student just had a poor test, but they're doing really well in the class. So if you put in the notes exit, I will take them off. If you feel like you need to add a student, you could just go to the bottom of this document. I could add in a student here. So let's just say I'm putting in a student here, Smith, John, and then I would go over, click on my teacher name, and then I would hyperlink a plan prior to the next data meeting. So that would be how you add or exit. Again, if you're keeping them, you want to input the plan. If you want to exit, you just write in exit. And if you want to add, just scroll to the bottom and add in. The other tab would be across the bottom here. There is a math, that's the lowest 20th percentile, but we will get to that. This one here, the special education lowest 20th percentile. If a student showed up in the lowest 20th percentile and is currently on an IEP, I added them here. If the student is doing well with the supports and services and they are meeting their goals and you don't see that there would be a need for additional support beyond what they're receiving, you could just keep it here as doing well in the notes. If you think it's a student, for example, that is speech and language, that eventually may need more supports, maybe it could be a specific learning disability, they might need resource support. If you could note in the column additional concerns, maybe just put yes, we'll create a hyperlink for them and provide them additional Tier 2 services and work them through the MTSS process. So if you have a concern in regards to any of the students here beyond what is being provided through their IEP, if you could just put yes as additional concerns, or no if you don't have additional concerns and they're doing well as with the supports and services in place, Again, at the data meeting, we would look at those students that you have additional concerns, and I will create a hyperlinked plan for them as well. If you have any questions, you can let me know. You would want to bring all the data and information to the data meeting, but we just want to make sure that we can spend our time focusing on the action plan and getting the data inputted prior. So you need to look at that special education lowest 20th percentile, yes or no for concerns, and then obviously go through, check the students on your list, add students at the bottom of this document, input in the plan if you want to keep them, or exit if you think that they don't need additional tier 2 supports. Thank you, and see you next week, Lafayette.